In a short course on decision making, you'll probably be told things like, trust your instinct, go with your gut. And when time is short, you sort of have to rely on those things. There isn't a whole lot of time to think it through and do research. But that often doesn't work out so well for us because we're fallen human beings. We've been marred by original sin, and so our instinct, our gut, is somewhat tainted. It doesn't always choose the right thing. So the real way to make a decision is to take it to prayer. When I counsel men who are thinking about the priesthood, and that's a major decision. That sets up there at the level of should I marry this person or not? Life-altering decision after which nothing is the same and you cannot go back. That's a big one. So I give them a book. We go through it together. This is a group I have called the Response Group. You can check out the details on my website, buffalovocations.org. And the book's written by Father Michael Scanlon, and it's called What Does God Want? And it's this nice little book about a quarter of an inch thick. You could just read it in one sitting, although it's more designed to be read over a series of days or weeks, making a big decision in life. And he boils it down to 5 words that all start with the letter C. Like the first one, conformity. Does what you think you're being asked to do by God conform with what he's told us in the Bible, in the catechism, the church teaching? God obviously will not ask you to do something that's opposed to his moral teachings or to the revelations of the creed. Consistency. Does this sound like the voice of God as I've gotten to know him over all my life? God has a certain style and way of speaking to us, so we can kind of recognize it that way. All these have to work together, of course. You don't want to pin the whole decision on one of them. There's 5 of these words. You could read the book if you want, and it gives these great case studies. It's not really intended for men discerning the priesthood precisely, but I find that it's just a general decision-making guide, and it works so well in sorting out those big, major decisions in life. Should I change jobs? Should we buy a new house? Should we downsize the house that we have? What does God want? From Father Michael Scanlon. Giving the decision over to God. It seems to be what is needed here in this gospel today. As a fellow walks into a big banquet, and the first thing he does is, he listens to his gut, right? And his gut tells him, go for the gusto, reach for the stars. So he takes the highest seat, and he's bumped out of it. Sir, you were sitting in the chairman's seat. Did you realize that? So then he has to listen to everybody else that tells him to go here and take this seat instead. And it's not until he finally listens to God, I'll just take this lowly seat here and see what happens. And then things improve. Don't sit there. No, we got to move you up a little bit. People we need to hear what you have to say. Notice the process. And I found this in my own road to the priesthood. At first, I listened to what other people told me I should do with my life. I was a 16-year-old kid in high school. What do I know about the world? It's big, it's scary. I'll listen to the experts. And in school, they just looked at they boil your life down to metrics, right? You are good in math and science. You should be an engineer. Okay, that's what, I don't know. I'll go do it. Studied engineering, got a job in the field. It was fine. It was all right. I was making decent money. But I never felt like I was having enough of an impact on the world. I need to change jobs. So by now I was a little bit older, kind of had a feeling what I wanted. I went with my gut. I want to change industries into the computer industry. I want to work in IT. And I was working at the University of Buffalo doing networking for the engineering school and the scientific research. Wow, we're supporting these research labs. We're enlarging the knowledge of humanity. Now I'm making a bigger impact on the world. Only it was a high-stress job as you're trying to always prepare people for technology 2 years in the future, and my boss had this Napoleonic complex where he just wanted to keep conquering more departments. Good news, guys, I've got 30 more machines for you to administer. Are we ever going to hire anybody to help us with this? And I would go home on the weekends and spend Saturday just with this tightness in my chest. I think I'm going to have a heart attack by the time I'm 45 if I stick with this job. What other people told me to do didn't work. What I thought I should do did not work. And finally, it was when I sat down on the couch on one of those Saturday afternoons and said, Jesus, I'm just making a big wreck out of my life. Why don't you tell me what you want me to do? And I'll do it, whatever it is. That was when the slight, subtle change began. I began feeling that call to ministry. And now I feel like I'm making a difference in the world. Trust God first. God, then others, then ourselves. That's how it always works. And that has brought me here to the altar, where heaven and earth come together. The letter to the Hebrews, did you catch the reading there? That you have not approached a blazing fire and gloomy darkness and a storm and trumpet blast and a voice so that people who heard it begged that it not be addressed to them. You know what he's talking about is the book of Exodus, just before the 10 Commandments, when the people are complaining, God is so distant, why doesn't he show himself? You hear that all the time these days, don't you, right? If God would just show himself, everybody would believe. Everybody would be scared to death if God showed himself, because that's what happens. Moses is like, the Lord has said he will grant your request. Come and gather around the mountain and the Lord will come down. And it was boom. I mean, it was fire and exactly what's written here. Earthquakes and storms and thunder and lightning. And then there was this crash and the people just clapped their hands over their ears and said, we can't take this. Tell you what, Moses, you go up the mountain for us and get God's law. How would that be? We think that we know how God should reveal himself and run the world, and we don't know what we're talking about. He's God. He knows what is best. God is far too intense to reveal himself directly in this world. It would crack the fabric of reality. It almost did there on the mountain in the book of Exodus. So the letter to the Hebrews, which they say was probably actually a homily, and someone out in the congregation heard it and said, this is good, write this one down. And it turned out to be inspired by the Holy Spirit, and it made it into the Bible. So he's saying, brothers and sisters, this is not that scene from Exodus in the Old Covenant where God revealed himself and it almost knocked the people back onto their seats with all of that thunder and terror. No, you've drawn near to this very gentle, peaceful encounter with God. And what is it? The heavenly Jerusalem. Countless angels in festal gathering, God, the judge of all, and Jesus, the mediator of the new covenant, and the sprinkled blood, more eloquent than the blood of Abel from the Old Testament. I know this must have been a homily that someone preached at Mass, because when he says you've drawn near to the sacred blood, I'm sure he was pointing at the altar, because that's what we receive every time we celebrate Mass, isn't it? And if you don't believe that, I'm not sure why you're still Catholic in this day and age. You know, you hear these statistics about 60% of people don't believe that it's the body and blood of Christ. Wow, what are they doing still here at Catholic Mass? We have the hardest faith in the world to follow. The only reason you can hang in there and follow it is because you know you're receiving the true flesh and blood of Christ, and God is changing your own body chemistry into his every single Sunday. You've drawn near to the sprinkled blood of Jesus Christ here at the altar. He's drawing this picture together that if you've ever read a book by Scott Hahn called The Lamb's Supper, this is exactly what he described. He said, this is what the book of Revelation is all about. I get a peek through an open door into heaven. That's what John says this book is all about. And I see people standing around in white robes and candles lit and scriptures being read and the baptismal pool full. There's a Mass going on in heaven, everybody. And when we come around to celebrate this Mass, we get lifted up into that heavenly liturgy. Or maybe it comes down to us. I don't know which way it goes. It's very mystical. But you can be assured that when the King of Heaven drops down onto this altar, kings don't travel alone. They bring the whole court with them. And so you are accompanied by countless angels in festal gathering and the assembly of the firstborn enrolled in heaven. And who's that? Your deceased loved ones. All of those people that you miss and you just wish you could spend a little bit of time with them again, they're here at every single Mass. And I'm not talking about just in the sense I remember him and we used to be in this place together. I mean a true spiritual presence. They are here with us when Jesus Christ becomes present on this altar. That's why we keep coming back to Mass every single weekend, because this is where heaven and earth come together. And in the middle of it all is this lanky priest standing there going, I'm so unworthy to even be holding it in my hands. I can't believe what's going on right now. That's the glory of the priesthood, everybody. that was what was worth walking away from all those other jobs and money and whatever else that entices us in this world to step into ministry. If you're feeling that call, check out that website, buffalovocations.org. Whatever your role is in the church, whatever God has called you to, realize that we stand in the presence of divinity every time we're in this place. Let us stand and proclaim our faith together.